Good day. I'm Magenta June. Our headlines tonight.
Controversy as Bake Off champion title revoked after admitting to affair with Paul Hollywood. Richard Branson, founder of Virgin, dies in space. And ethnically ambiguous dessert renamed
Pudding of colour.
But first, the national ban on foreign cushions has been in place for over 1 month now. But to what extent has it taken effect? Elvis Velvet reports.
Cocaine, heroin, marijuana. We're all aware of the advanced criminal networks in which these drugs prevail. There's a new killer in town. Last night, Police Special Unit 4 uncovered nearly 3 tons of illegally smuggled cushions. Sadly, this isn't an isolated event. More and more of these so-called soft houses are being uncovered every week. Contrary to expectations, the national ban on foreign cushions has resulted in an influx on imports, all of which are now illegal and are devastating communities and local businesses. Alejandra was dragged into the violent trade after struggling to find work in the UK. To protect their identity, we'll be referring to them as Craig.
My
job was to transfer the cushions in a van. It paid well, and I needed the money. It's terrible. The authorities treated me very well for the destructive criminal that I am. Please take my word, this industry is a harmful form of trafficking, and I advise anyone to stay as far away as possible.
Entonces, en este momento pensé, oh Alejandro, pobre, ¿cómo ha venido a esto?
Justin Greenspoon, Minister of Contingency, joins us today. Justin, what are your opinions on the current allegations?
Well, I think it's important to believe.
How are your party at fault?
I think it's important to believe that
what
this
does
isn't
the
a
Prime Minister
personal
do
attack on.
To reduce the factors?
I think it's important to believe that this
How
isn't a
personally
personal
are you at
attack.
fault?
I think it's
Yes or no,
important to
Justin?
believe.
Yes or no, Justin?
I think
Yes
it's important to
or
believe
no?
that.
And that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you, Justin, for this interview, and I hope you have a good night.
Continuing our series on influential historical figures, Marshal de Roos de Brie reports on one of Bristol's most feared pirates of the 17th century.
Uwami hearties, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. A few hundred years ago, these very streets were home to a horde of piratical activity, but one man's thumb was sorer than the rest. Of course, I'm referring to Wallace Wogglegurt. I'll be beginning my journey here, at the start of the beginning. Through that door, Wogglegurt was thrust from his mother's loins at the tender age of 0. He quickly learned the ways of the waters, playing here throughout his childhood. But in 1664, tragedy struck like a cane on a naughty boy's bottom. His mother, Gertrude Wogglegurt, died whilst giving birth to her 19th child. She was crushed by a falling sack of grain. Like many young men of his day, Walter was nudged towards a life of crime in order to provide for his previously growing family. Here, beneath St. Benezet's Bridge, hundreds of rich and single merchants were robbed under his surprisingly soft hands. In 1662, Gertie joins the Marinade, a pirating vessel known for her swashbuckling swindles. She was around 0.1 acres and probably looked a lot like this one. I reckon. He's a sly bugger who rises through the ranks like a hairy ball of dough, and on seizing captaincy, he has this statue erected in his honour. At the height of his career, 3% of the world's gold was in possession of the Waggler himself, but it's rumoured that his greatest treasure was much more valuable. Few records exist of what was known as El Planeta de Plata, but we know it somewhat resembled a giant aluminium ball. It's likely it was dismantled after Wogleg's death, and its disappearance remains one of the most mysterious mysteries in historical history. Walgert goes on to captain the infamous grain barge, and in the span of 5 years later is in continuous confliction with Sir Rupert of the Royal Navy. But one morning, the world woke up, and Wallace had woggled his last walk in this world. He was gone. Over 350 years later, it's still up for debate how or if Wallace Wogglegurt died. But I like to think he settled down, perhaps on one of the Guinea Islands, volunteered at the local infirmary and organised treasure hunts for the children. Marshal de Rufus de Brie, 17th century Bristol, News Worldly.
Now, a public service announcement. Due to the most recent infection, the Department of Health and Social Care would like to emphasize the regulations that are currently in place. If you find yourself witness to a yawn, first turn away and cover your ears. Unless you are exposed to the full duration of a yawn, you have only a 23% chance of contracting one yourself. Secondly, dial 4 to alert our team to the location of the incident and give a description of the person to the best of your ability. If you yourself become infected with the yawn, immediately dial 4-1. The top data shows it's imperative that the nation does their best to mitigate the spread of infections. And by keeping this simple guidance in mind, our great nation will remain a stronghold for public health. Thank you.
During that announcement, our beloved weatherman, Fergie Inferno, has become infected. For that reason, the team here in Newsworldly Studios are saddened to admit that this week's weather will be reported by Peter Butter.
Thanks, Magenta. I'm Peter Butter, and you're watching the weather with me, Peter Butter. This week, we got a cracking load of weather for you beauties that I'm thrilled and gassed to take you through. Firstly, down south, we got a front, a low pressure, followed by a back of our pressure. Now, I know what you're thinking. It don't get much better than this. Well, check out this Thursday.
Thank you, Peter. Sadly, that is all we have time for tonight. Coming up next is Kettlemania, but for now it's a goodbye from us. Bye-bye.